This is a production of Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
We have some commitments to talk about. It almost feels like football season as we are getting right around the corner to SEC Media Days, where we'll be broadcasting live. With Chris Landry, I'm Dave Hooker, Chalk Talk, breaking down Tennessee's two new commitments over the weekend. Both 3 stars, both guys that Tennessee has had targeted for quite some time. I'm going to tell you about the awesomeness that is Owl's Nest Barbecue here in one moment. But let's start with Jeremiah Tellender, who announced his decision, Chris, over the weekend on Sunday. The Vols have been all over Tellender for months. So they liked him really, really early. So you can say he's a 3-star if a recruiting analyst wants to. But the bottom line is Tennessee thinks he's good enough to play, and we'll find out if that's the case.
Yeah, and I think I figured out why they like him and have him rated a little bit higher. I've watched him on tape. He's a good player. He's a very instinctive guy, and I say that because of the way he plays. He doesn't false step a lot. I think he competes hard. He gets to the ball quickly in an angering mindset, which tells me that he has a real good understanding and knack for football situations. I think he moves well. He's a good enough athlete. He can play on the field. But watching him on tape, I see the production from the middle of their defense and tons of tackles, tons of stops, some for losses. And he does a really good job. Again, his instincts are good. I like his first step. I think he accelerates to the line of scrimmage very well. He can plant and drive to the hook and curl route areas and coverage, which is good. I think his change of direction is good. He runs the alley well, which means he moves well laterally with the play, and he closes space in the process, makes really good tackles behind the line of scrimmage. But the biggest thing, I exchanged a text with one of their coaches, and what they like his size, and they think he can add a little bit more weight, but it's the intangibles of getting to know him. Something I don't know. I don't know the kid, but that is something that really sold him, that this can be an anchor guy in the future for their defense. I expect them to play on special teams early, to be a backup role. Look, they've now got a commitment on every level of their defense. Outside of for cornerback, they've got a nice run lately. And look, they've got Eli Herring and Mohan and Garland and Perry returning. So I don't expect this guy to play a lot early except for special teams. But this guy could be the instinctive guy that maybe they see something in him that maybe is not typically associated with the 3-star guy, which is good player, not special. They hope he can be special, at least instinctively.
Well, and Tennessee had a lot of highly rated prospects in, and we're going to discuss Francis Mauigoa here in just a moment. But I want to talk about Tennessee's newest commitment, or second newest, I guess. Tellender would be the latest. But I remind you, this is brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue in Ottawa. Owl's Nest has all the necessary rubs and has all the necessary sauces and the awesome grills to set you up in the backyard. And really, barbecue is more than just food. It is about family, friendship, the whole 9 yards, hanging out, cooking food slow. It's fantastic. They've got it all right there for you at Owl's Nest Barbecue. The other commitment that Tennessee picked up, again, a 3-star guy, and Tennessee did like him. And I've heard from some other recruiting analysts that they were a little surprised more schools weren't involved. Tell us what you know about John Slaughter in the defensive backfield.
Well, when I looked at him on tape, I was surprised that he's not ranked a little bit higher. He's the kid from South Haven, Mississippi High School. Ole Miss is just devastated. That was a priority get for them. So that's the one school that big school that, the Kentuckies, and you're right, not a lot of bigger schools offer him. But you know what? He can be the hybrid linebacker in that role when they need to play him, which is, to me, he's got enough size to do that. His strength is his natural ability in the deep middle of the field. He's got versatility. I think he plays the ball well. He's a naturally athletic guy. He shows good lateral agility. He can jump, high point the ball, like his eye hand coordination. And, he's just a jack of all trades. He's 6'2", 200. I see him as a 212, 215-pound guy who is, again, good enough to be in that hybrid role and maybe be in some run situations, but and that's some of what they do. They interchange guys, but I mean, he's a deep secondary defender that's got some versatility. What's not to like about the guy? I'm really surprised that the I guess the evaluation by some of the bigger schools weren't a little bit higher. I see him as a guy that would be more of a four-star looking type of guy, to use that vernacular. And again, I don't grade him with stars, but I'm a little bit surprised. Like Alabama got a big time commitment this weekend. They've recruited a different level, but this guy has great versatility, and I think it's a pretty good get for Tennessee personally.
I want to ask you about Mawagoa, the top-rated offensive tackle and top 10 prospect in the country out of IMG in Bradenton, Florida. First, Steve Ray's Midnight Oil Service and Tire Direct. They are the first place to go in Ottawa or Chattanooga, for that matter, for tires, auto repair, and regular vehicle maintenance, such as oil changes, wheel alignments, and brake repair. They're always keeping customer service and safety in mind. Expect the highest quality in tire repair and auto repair from Steve Ray's Midnight Oil Service and Tire Direct. So Nico spoke openly about how hard he was recruiting Francis Mawigawa. And I'm curious what you're hearing about him, because you were very high on him just from an evaluation standpoint last week.
Yeah, he's well, look, they feel pretty good. I know we'll get into some of the guys that they're interested. He took his official visit. As you mentioned, Nico has spent a lot of time with him, and he's done a good job with he and his family. I think Tennessee is in good position. The school I would worry the most about if I were a Tennessee fan would be Miami, who got a big time commitment from a quarterback this weekend. But this kid is a man. We always talk about guys that are defensive linemen that move to the offensive side. This guy had pass rush ability as a power guy. He is a true offensive tackle. He's got the great length. He's got really good feet, really good balance. He's got to improve his pass protection technique. But this is the type of guys you want to go with all those wide sets, folks. It is imperative that you have tackles in particular that can protect the edge, because they like to get as many guys out in routes as possible. So I think the chances listen, I don't know that their chances are any better than Miami's, but I think they're pretty good, and we'll see where it plays out.
Well, I mean, predicting where a 17-year-old's going to go can lead us to both lose our hair. I do find it interesting. You said Miami, and I heard from somebody else, maybe a Southern Cal type of lean. The one thing I will say this week. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Lincoln and that staff has been very high on them. I don't know if they're behind and they've made up ground. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I know Miami's worked him really hard. He went to IMG, but out west makes a lot of sense, and I don't know where he's going to go. The coaches they feel like Miami's their biggest threat, but I don't know that to be the case.
But you really like him as far as his strength, and we talked about his Polynesian background, which is a bonus for any football player I've been around. I go back to the JT Mapu days. Everyone I've been around is like the toughest guy in the room. There's no question about it. But you really like his upside, right?
I do. I think he's look, some of the guys, I'll be honest with you, the two guys we just talked about are really good fits for Tennessee, but they're not elite level players that at least the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States of the world. I think this kid could line up and play for anybody, and I think would be a good fit for anybody. He's that good in my mind, so we'll see where it goes.
Throughout your experience, because we talked about in-state prospects that are most likely to stay. And I said, in my experience, 2 decades or so covering recruiting, that Louisiana is the hardest state to pull someone out of that the in-state school, in this case LSU, is interested in. However, I look around and I think that California has always been the easiest because those kids are willing to move. But with this whole Bradenton IMG Academy, it doesn't feel like you're recruiting against the Florida schools nearly as much. If you noticed that, or is that me?
No, I think that's true. I think there are a couple of things with that. I think the IMG part is true because they have no ties to Florida, so a lot of them go there almost like a prep school, junior college, where they're okay. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go back home. Now, some of them may say, "Hey, I really like it here, and I may stay close to home." But here's what's changed. There was a point in time where Miami could get anybody in Dade, Broward County. Florida was a great recruiting school, particularly and more recently with Urban Meyer. And then Florida State with Bobby Bowden was phenomenal. Think about it, those programs have slipped quite a bit. Miami doesn't recruit to the same level. Now they're trying to get there, and they got Jaden Rashada, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, to commit this weekend. And Mario may be able to turn it around to a certain degree. Florida State, facility-wise, they got behind, and Mike Norvell's doing a good job, but they're not recruiting to the level that Coach Bowden did, and even Jimbo in his early years. And then Florida slipped mightily under Dan Mullen, and that's where obviously you're going to try to see a transition now with the new staff to with Billy Napier to try to get that turned around to where they can recruit. So when the three schools are not as dominant, I think like Alabama went in, and I mean they went into South Florida and they start taking kids away, and you start getting those elite players, that come and they leave, and everyone begins to follow. And so I think that's what's changed. Now, Saban's gone in Louisiana and taken some of the best players away from LSU. Not in numbers, but man, he goes in. It seems like one or two a year. He gets one of the elite guys away from
Yep.
LSU. And that's with some pretty good recruiting rankings by Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. It's just a different beast. And I think as we've gotten to where, it's the elite 4 or 5 schools, they can pretty much go and get anybody, anywhere, anytime. And then it's the rest of them that are really good that you got to get in, coach them up, and somehow penetrate that group, So I think it's a real interesting dynamic going on now.
I'm 48, so I remember
You're
Florida.
young. You're just a young pup.
Yeah, whatever. I feel old. My right shoulder and my left knee tell me I'm old.
Yeah. I'm
But
old and older and feel older than you, but go ahead.
yeah. So, um, but to me, people of my age, I haven't done a history lesson, think of Florida as this all-time, forever, incredible program that just rolled right on this Spurrier thing, and that must have been the continuation, Chris, of decades of dominance before that. That Pell guy must have been coach of the year. I don't know. But the simple fact is, none of that's true. They weren't very good before Steve Spurrier got there. And I wonder, because of the competition, because of all the other people coming in state, and the way the recruiting world has shrunk with social media, if I had to make you bet a week's pay that Florida ends the season with 11 wins or 5 wins over the next 5 years, which would you take? In other words, do they stay bottomed out, which they kind of did under Mullen, but they still were okay? Or do they excel under Billy Napier?
Well, I think they'll excel. Now, I thought you meant a number of wins for this year, and I was like, whoa, they're not going to be 5 or 11 this year. I think this is going to be the toughest year. I think Billy is putting together a program, at least infrastructure-wise. Now, you can have an infrastructure. Can you do it as well? He's doing a lot of what Alabama and Georgia are doing. They're doing it the same way. The large staffs, how they're going to recruit, how they're going to do that. Now, he's getting a little bit of heat now because he's telling the fans to be patient. I don't think there's a more impatient fan base than Florida. They think that they should be like competing for the national championship every year. And as you mentioned, a lot of them are spoiled because, yeah, I grew up when I was coaching at LSU. I mean, Florida, first of all, Florida, as you mentioned, was just not very good. Charlie Pell kind of built the Bull Gators and kind of built the infrastructure, the population boom. Miami was ready to drop the program before Snellenberger got there. Drop it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, just no interest, just nothing. And, so it's the population boom and their ability to recruit the players in that area. As they said in Miami, they call it recruit the state of Miami, as they called it. No, I think that place should be good, but you have to recruit well. It is loaded, and there's no reason why you can't be the beacon program if you're Florida. And I think that the other thing with Florida that hurt them, Dave, is they fell behind in facilities. For all the job that Jeremy Foley did, did a lot of good things. Man, did their facilities get behind. I mean, that if you're talking about programs with elite name brand value that doesn't have facilities, you go over there, the facilities, and like, what? I mean, fans would be surprised. It doesn't look like Knoxville. It doesn't look like Alabama. It doesn't look like Georgia. It doesn't look like LSU. And I was at LSU when the facilities were the worst of the 10 teams in the SEC. Florida's facilities don't look like South Carolina's. They don't look like Kentucky's. Florida? Really? Yes, that's right. That's changing. They opened a new facility in April, and I think Billy's trying to – this is what needs to happen to sustain, because what they've had was a little bit of spoiled with Spurrier. Well, we didn't have to have all that. Okay, well, you didn't have to back then. Urban Meyer did a great job, but then it's been a hodgepodge of mediocrity and inconsistency. But Florida, I think, if I were to say 2-3 years from now, I'd say they'd be, gaining closer and closer ground to Georgia, the second best in the East. If Billy does it like I think he's going to do it, we'll see. But he's at least putting the infrastructure there that if he doesn't get it done, the guy that replaces him will be in better position to do it, because they're doing things infrastructure-wise that they haven't done at Florida ever.
Go to Steve Ray's Midnight Oil and Tire Direct for your Michelin products. They will take care of you, and they can do all kinds of work on your car, and you know that you're being taken care of, because Steve Ray's been around the Ottawa and Chattanooga community forever, so he takes pride in his work. And don't forget Owl's Nest Barbecue, the best rubs, the best pellets, the best every kind of barbecue accessory you can imagine in the world is right there at Owl's Nest Barbecue. Go to owlsnestbarbecue.com or check them out there in Ottawa. So we'll talk to you next week. Chalk Talk, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.